The lines between variable and fixed costs can sometimes get blurred. We don't necessarily need to worry about what that line is. It's more important to be consistent in how you're calculating your costs. This enterprise tool is designed to make decisions on your farm and possibly to share with your agricultural lender. Some expenses and costs are straightforward, others are a little more complex. You can find most of these costs on your Schedule F tax form, from your financial records, or from your crop or financial consultant. We'll now share the Crop Enterprise Budget tool. The tool has the income or the revenue on the top as we discussed earlier. We'll continue to use the corn tab. The income would be the corn and the price of that corn sold, plus some maybe miscellaneous income, including those government payments. Now if we look at some of the expenses, quite a few of these expenses are very straightforward. There's a fertilizer tab, and we have the fertilizers split up as starter, phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen fertilizers. One caution is that you do need to be sure to have charges for application as part of your cash expense. Also, lime would be considered if it's applied in that current cropping year. Lime could be prorated over the course of the life of a stand such as alfalfa. Seed is also very straightforward. You can just put in the cost and your plant population to look at a cost per acre. Looking at some of the crop protection expenses like weed control, fungicide, insecticides, and all those products that are included in crop protection can be put in this section plus the application cost. Now you may have more than one application of a herbicide or an insecticide, thus you'd need to make sure to account for both of those applications. We can look at machinery costs, which many times can be significant in our cash flow and our cash costs. In this discussion, we can add as many or as few as we'd like. So you can see there's a tab to add more machinery, different types of pieces of equipment, and the amount of times that's used in a cropping season. We suggest using a custom rate guide if you don't have an enterprise budget for everything on your farm. One caution is that the custom rate guide many times will include depreciation, which would be considered the fixed cost. You can adjust these numbers to see how they fit with your operation. If you have just your repairs, your fuel costs, your operator costs, etc. for your machinery, that can be included in that specific line. Crop insurance is a cost that needs to be considered. It's very specific to crop production and the crop that you're producing. Land costs can sometimes get complicated where we're looking at cash flow. If you're renting acres, you can just consider what the cash rent per acre is. If you own those acres, you could look at what your cash costs are in ownership, which would be the taxes. Some repairs, if you need to fill in waterways or fill in any erosion, and the interest that you're paying. If you want to consider a lowball rent payment as your land cost, you can do that too. One thing is if you're comparing from one crop to another and you're using this tool, you should leave the land cost relatively consistent so that you can make a fair comparison of cropping enterprises. There is also an area here where we can include the interest payment for more accuracy. In this section, this would be the interest on any crop inputs, like a crop loan that you would get, or any other farm loan that you can divide out for that specific enterprise. If you pay for everything in cash, this may not be significant. Remember, we talked a little bit earlier, we're not really looking at the opportunity costs here. With this cash flow budget, we specifically want to look at your total expenses to grow that specific crop. And we can split that into a net return per acre and also what your break-even costs. So at the bottom of the spreadsheet, you can see what those break-even costs are for that specific crop.